become a product manager. And an engineer person comes and he become a product manager, right? And that's what happens. A marketing guy, he has done something good and he has been, considered as a product manager. Who am I? Am I someone who need to make product successful? Am I someone who is a customer advocate, or am I someone a problem solver? What do you want to say? Yes. Over to you.
Yeah, so first of all, nice to be with you, and thanks for having me. It's really nice to see so many of you taking an interest in product and product management. That's lovely. So product management, the way I look at it is a comparatively new discipline, a comparatively new profession. Certainly in the digital space, I believe the first product managers for software products emerged in the 1980s. I believe Microsoft was one of the first companies to recognize software product management as a profession and as a job title. So when you compare that to engineering, when you compare that to sales and marketing or finance, we're a comparatively young profession. And product management, I think, has changed significantly over the last 10, 15 years, through approaches like Agile and Lean Startup, customer development, business modeling, to name just a few. And so when I look at some of the product management desk references that were written maybe 5, 10 years ago, they already feel rather outdated, even though the individuals who put them together went through an amazing effort to produce those books. So it's changed quite a bit. It's been quite a fast-moving profession. We've also had an influx of new people joining the profession over the last 5 years. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because I think it sort of sets the background or explains a little bit why it can be tricky to explain exactly what is product management and what is the role of a product manager. But I very much see a product manager as being responsible for ensuring that a product becomes successful and stays successful. And that then, in a way, leads to the question, what is a product? And a product for me, I should maybe start sharing my screen so I can scribble and visualize some of what I'm saying here and share that with you, please. So a product is something, an asset. Code plus additional artifacts that creates value for the users, for a group of users. So, a specific value solves a specific problem or creates a specific benefit that people wouldn't want to miss, helps users achieve a specific goal, or, helps the individuals achieve a specific job. And at the same time, it has to create value for the company developing and providing it for the business. Now, I've drawn a dollar symbol to represent business value, but it doesn't necessarily have to be revenue, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a profit margin that the product creates. It could be an increase in productivity. It could be valuable knowledge that the product helps create. It could be developing the brand. So those will be assets that are maybe harder to measure in terms of their financial impacts. But again, product is an entity that creates largely on its own, that creates value for a group of people, gives them a clear reason to engage with the product, use it, and possibly pay for it in one way or the other. And it creates at the same time value for the business. And so a product manager or a product owner, a Scrum product owner, somebody who's in charge of a product will be responsible then for maximizing the value that the product creates.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So, make that product successful, achieve product market fit for new products, and then keep it successful for as long as possible. So that'd be at least my answer, my take on it.
That's a great answer, right? Where you also, touch the value. And you said value is not only, right, you earn. It's also basically that you save something, you optimize. That's what you said. Absolutely great. Roman, this is one of a question, right? Most of people who work with me as a product, new product managers, they are the first person, they've just now joined an organization. And we all know how high learning curve it has. What is your advice to them? What should they do first? Certain things. What are their activities, right? That will be amazing if you suggest as a guru. Yes.
I think it'll very much depend on the role that people play. So that be, in a way, my advice would be, my recommendation would be reflect on what is your specific role, what product role do you have? Do you have responsibility for an entire product, or do you have a responsibility for part of a product? And then depending on your, and then the second step, the second thing I'd recommend is reflect on your skills, on your current skills. And I mean, hopefully, as somebody who's just joined a new company and maybe has just moved into that job role, you have something like a job description. But I think they're not usually the challenge is to become competent in your job and become a competent product person. And product management, I find, is a fascinating profession. I guess I have to say this, but I truly think, we are in a fortunate position as product people. It's a very creative job. We have the opportunity to have a positive impact on the users and our businesses, and create something, shape something. So I think that's rather nice. That's rather beautiful. But it's also a very complex. It can be quite a complex profession. There are lots of things to it, lots of facets. And so when it comes to skills, I like to work with quite a simple model. I like to think about the transferable product management skills that are virtually applicable in any product management role. And I like to break them down into the three sets that you see here on this slide. Tactical skills, strategic skills, and leadership skills. So tactical skills are around, or refer to the ability to manage a product backlog, maybe create it, stock it, prioritize it, update it, maybe help write user stories, maybe create personas before we start stocking the product backlog and writing user stories might be a good idea. Testing out ideas for specific features or feature enhancements. And then strategic skills would be the ability to manage a product across the life cycle and understand the life cycle model. It will be the ability to create and validate and update a product strategy, maybe in the context of carrying out product discovery work, to create and update a product roadmap, to do some business modeling and some financial forecasting. And then these are the hard skills, and often when people enter product management, that's what they're looking for, and these are the skills they initially acquire. And that makes a lot of sense, because these skills, in addition to learning to know more about the users and the markets, and meeting customers and users, and learning better how the company works, maybe understanding the competition. I mean, these are crucial skills to be able to make the right product decisions. But equally important, I find, are the leadership skills, the people skills, the soft skills. And these people skills, they kind of bring the hard skills, the strategic and tactical skills to life. And those are things like strengthening our capability to empathize with people, particularly difficult individuals, actively listening to them, building trust and strengthening relationships, making decisions together, collaborative decision making, and securing strong buy-in for important product decisions, maybe a little bit of negotiation skills, things around goal setting, and using a vision and maybe cascading goals at different levels in order to align people, create alignment, and at the same time give people the autonomy they need to do their job. So these are the three skill sets that I like to look at, and depending on the job role you have, and depending on where your strengths and weaknesses are, my suggestion would be then, look into ways, into learning and development measures, how you can strengthen the appropriate skills. So if you find, well, I maybe lack some tactical skills, then maybe that's what you should focus on. And there are various ways how you can do it. You can join communities like this. You can, I'm sure there are numerous good videos on how to manage and prioritize your product backlog. I know there are decent articles out there, and podcast episodes, training courses, whatever works for you. There are books that talk about product backlog management. And the same is true for the other skill sets. Now, I find the more senior a product role is, the more you're likely to require in-depth strategic and leadership skills. But again, in order to be a competent product person, I'll try and visualize that. I think you should aim for decent skills in all three areas. So this is meant to say competent product person. Was that an okay answer?
That's a great answer, Roman. But now I'm going to ask, on the top you saw leadership skills, tactical and strategical, which is absolutely great, right? And now I think there is a new drive, not a product manager, it's a product leader. What one quality you as a guru would like to say someone imbibe in themselves to become a good product leader rather a product manager?
Yeah, nice question. So before I try and answer the question, I think it's maybe helpful to sort of become aware of the fact that product leader, I think, is an ambiguous term, which shouldn't really come as a surprise, because those of you who've practiced product management for a while, you probably know that quite a few of the technical terms that we use can be ambiguous, which means different people have different ideas what they mean. So some people, like my colleague Rich Mirnov, and Rich is a great guy, when he talks about product leaders, he talks about people who manage teams of product managers and product owners, so line managers of product people. When I talk about product leadership and being an effective product leader in my work, I also refer to practicing product people. So to someone who works as a product manager or Scrum product owner, has responsibility for a product, but also has to offer leadership to the stakeholders in the development team and has to guide and align those individuals. Now, what is maybe a helpful quality for both line managers, people who manage a team of product people, and individual product professionals who want to lead the stakeholders and the development teams? I think the ability to listen with an open mind and to take a genuine interest in the people who we work with and who we want to lead. I think that for me would be maybe the one skill that I'd be looking for. If we can listen to someone with an open mind attentively and be present, that helps us empathize with the individual. It kind of then follows as a nearly natural step to empathize and better understand the individual, which then builds trust, which then allows us to be able to influence and guide the person. So it all starts with making an effort to be there, take time and listen.
Roman, amazing answer. And it's a great guidelines what you are saying. Listen, and then you could probably able to empathize more. Now, I think probably maybe a same question, but I might need little more strategies here. Stakeholders, some stakeholders nudge, certain stakeholders basically move. How to manage difficult stakeholders, right? And there are good, but how to manage difficult stakeholders? That's a question most of product owners and managers generally ask. And I think that's a very key thing. What is your advice or strategies?
Yeah, great question. So I find it interesting to notice when I think of a person as difficult, because for me, labeling someone as difficult, well, calling someone difficult is a label. So I attach a label to someone. And usually it is because I disagree with the individual, either the behavior that the individual is displaying or the views and opinions that the person is voicing, is sharing. So there's an element of disagreement, there's an element of friction and conflict. And conflict, I think, is something that is rather natural, something we experience routinely at home, in our private life, so to speak, and at work. But I think we experience quite a bit of conflict as product people, partly because of the role that we have. Again, I'll try and visualize this really briefly here. So we interact with the users and customers. Mm-hmm. We interact with the business stakeholders.
Yeah.
And we interact with the development teams. I'll make them green. And we're right at the middle here. And all those individuals, they have different backgrounds. Users and customers may have different perspectives. Often they have different needs. The business stakeholders come from different departments or business units, again, may have different ideas, may have different goals. And certainly a cross-functional agile development team consists of people with different skills, which often then gives rise to different ideas. Now, that per se is nothing bad. And in fact, if we learn to deal constructively with conflict and people who we experience as being difficult, then that can become a source of creativity and innovation for our products. Unfortunately, in my work, I've found that conflict often isn't addressed, it isn't resolved, it isn't handled skillfully. And quite often at work, I've experienced conflict being ignored or suppressed. And when that happens, then conflict leaves behind a trail of bad feeling and mistrust, and it damages connections. It reduces productivity. It makes work less enjoyable. So for me, in order to effectively manage stakeholders, and particularly difficult stakeholders, it's increasing our ability to deal with disagreement and friction and conflict. And the various approaches that are available in various frameworks that we can use. But I don't know if I've already answered your question or if I should add a little bit more detail.
See, you can keep adding details, but I think you have answered the question exactly right, what I was asking, right? Roman, next thing is that, see what's happening. We are in a COVID situation, right? And if you really see a pharma industry, what they are doing, they are trying to, create or identify a new vaccine. Yeah. And when they are trying to identify a new vaccine, that's also kind of a product identification, discovery is happening. But there is a money, there is a commerce behind that, whereas there is a humanity. What is ethical product management? Do you really want to tie this thing with this? What is your view on that? Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a very important question, I find. So for me, an ethical product is a product that doesn't cause any harm.
Yes.
I mean, ideally, I think every product should try and truly benefit people in the sense that it changes people's life for better. Now, for some products that might be hard, but I think the least thing would be not to cause any harm, not to cause any harm to the individuals, to the society, and to the planet. So I think whenever we work on products that are harmful or potentially harmful, we should really ask ourselves as a product community and as individuals, if what we're doing is right, is ethical.
Thank you, Roman. I think this was a question which I added, and this is a bigger community. 91 people are there. They should really understand that ethical product management is absolutely important, right? Very few people talk about that, right? And since you are there, I really wanted to percolate that message to our Indian community. Now we spoke about why. This is why for me actually, right, on the product management. Now I'll say, building the product right or build the right product. Yeah, these are the two things actually, right? Usually what happens, build the right thing is something being basically right pushed, but build the things right also. How we should do that? What is your strategy behind that? What you would like to suggest?
Yeah, nice question. So I think it depends a little bit where we are in the product life cycle. But I mean, I generally find the idea of setting some dedicated time aside and focusing on some dedicated form of product discovery helpful. So particularly when you have a brand new product or when you have an existing product that you maybe want to take to a new market, and so a bigger change is required, then so we have an idea here. I'll try and visualize this a little bit. So this is an idea, and again, it could be a brand new product. It could be in order to significantly change an existing product. Then it can be helpful to initially do some dedicated or time-boxed product discovery, where we really figure out if and why we should develop the product. And that, in my mind, includes thinking about the product's value proposition. So what is the benefit it should create towards the markets, the users and customers? Who are those users and customers? Which market or market segment should we address? You know, who is the target group? What makes the product different or stand out? So what are the differentiators or standout features? You know, compared to existing products or products being offered by the competitors? And what are the specific business goals that the product should achieve? And what is the underlying business model that helps us monetize the product and meet the desired business goals? So these are some of the key questions for me to ask. And once we've understood those questions, or once we're able to answer those questions confidently, we can then move on and carry out the actual product development. This is not drawn very nicely, you have to forgive me. Product development. And product development then, in my mind, really focuses on figuring out what is the right user experience design, how do we apply the chosen architecture, and what is the detailed software design. Architecture, difficult word. And what are the specific features and the specific, maybe I should write the specific functionality that we want to implement. I've done it again. Functionality. And hopefully by the end of this, we end up with a shippable product.
Mm-hmm.
So that be an innovation process model that I find helpful in order to understand what do we need to do in order to make sure that it's worthwhile, that we maximize the chances of creating a product that is valuable and that can become a success. Yeah. And again, that's a useful approach I find, particularly for brand new products and for existing products where we want to make a bigger change. I call this time-boxed product discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I mentioned, I like to time box these activities here. And I like to suggest to start with a time box that's no longer than a month and subdivide this 1 month time box into a weekly, I don't know, I feel uncomfortable calling them iterations, but there sort of are iterations, periods where at the end of each week we have a review meeting and we see how the discovery effort has developed, if we've managed to answer any questions, address any uncertainties, test any assumptions and resolve any risks, or in fact, maybe more risks have appeared and more uncertainties have been found. Sometimes that happens. So that's time box discovery. In addition to that, I'd like to just very briefly mention that it's not enough just to say, oh, we do discovery for a new product, or when we make a massive big change to an existing one and then we're done. Whew, thank God. We no longer need to worry about this discovery thing. Oh God, that was exhausting enough. Unfortunately, that's not a good idea. The world doesn't stand still. Markets change and competitors come up with new ideas, new market entrants appear. But more importantly, if you develop a brand new product, you usually want to launch a minimum viable product, an MVP, a good enough product. And you then have to carry out more discovery in order to get that product ready for the mainstream market and achieve product market fit. And even once you're in the growth stage, you have to continue to invest in those strategic activities in order to keep your product ahead and keep it attractive and beneficial. So discovery is not something that goes away. In addition to those dedicated kind of bigger, you could say upfront time-boxed activities, you should also then invest in continuous discovery in order to move your product forward and keep it beneficial.
Super. So Roman, now I'm going to ask certain questions, which is also on chat. And I'm going to, add 2 questions, right? So Rishikesh, he's basically asking, and, this is also a question from some of the, people who are also probably, getting into consulting on the product side. How to move a broader product mindset in organizations beyond technically building a product, actually, right? How to do that, right? What is your 2 points on that? Yeah.
Yeah, nice question. Thanks for asking it. And it's, I find a difficult question to answer. When you work with an organization, the same is true when you join an organization that doesn't have a product awareness, where there is no dedicated product management function, no product management group, no head of product, maybe, where people maybe primarily think in terms of projects. Let's do a project to get this job done or to implement some features. Then it can be very hard to work as a product person, be it as a consultant or being as a practitioner, as a doer. And it usually, my experience is it usually needs some form of senior executive management support. And it usually requires that the people who are the top decision makers in the organization understand maybe better what product management is, why it would be beneficial for the company, and what it takes to establish an effective product management group. I mean, when you introduce product management into an organization, then you essentially take away decision-making power from other units. And, you know, that can be pretty tough for quite a few people involved. And often that's virtually impossible to do without executive management support. So I don't want to sound too negative, but I really do believe in order to, you know, successfully establish a product management function and sustain that function and grow it, you do need that top management support ultimately. So my advice would be, think about how you can lobby for that support. Think about how you can influence the top decision makers in the organization.
No, Roman, I think I fully agree with you. And that's, if I do any transformation, I start with top. There is a tie-up question now, right? And a question which Vijay is basically asking, right? And a question which I will add: strategy sits and never have a breakfast with tactics, actually, right? Yeah. So a road mapping is one thing, right? And which you says, and a lot of people says, I say collaborative road mapping. We are in pandemic situation, COVID situation. What are the things which should change, or which will change, or which should be adapted to have strategy touching tactics, having road mapping? Actually, what are your suggestions on that?
Yeah, and another nice question. So, before I try and answer the question, we just quickly draw something up.
Yeah.
So I quite like to work with a model where we have, I should maybe say, a product vision and a product strategy. And I'll draw a little structure up here, which some of you may recognize. If you don't recognize, don't worry about it. And then I like to work here with a product roadmap. And then here we have the product backlog. Now, for me, a vision really describes the ultimate purpose of a product, the reason why a product exists. So if I wanted to develop, so an example I like to use is, you know, if I wanted to develop a mobile app that helps people understand better how much they eat and when they eat and what they eat, then the vision behind this product could be healthy eating. So that's the big vision, that big, hairy, audacious goal that the product has. And then the strategy should describe my intent, how I want to reach that goal. And it should describe the target group. It should describe the problem the product would solve. So in target group could be middle-aged men like me. And the problem that the product wants to solve is reduce the risk of conducting type 2 diabetes, for instance. And then, you know, I'd like to also capture some standout features, maybe a nifty integration with smartwatches and smart scales, and maybe a few other features. And then the business goals, and that could be maybe opening up a new revenue stream, entering a new market, diversifying the business. But the vision itself is obviously big, huge, and you know, you can't measure it. And the way I've described the strategy, it's still pretty high level. I mean, it kind of breaks the vision down, and it describes the rough path, the rough approach chosen to get closer to the vision and realize the vision, but it's still too big. And so I think it's then worthwhile to take the next step. and derive from a strategy, a product roadmap. And I very much look at the product roadmap as an actionable product plan that communicates where we want to take our product, say, over the next 12 months, and clearly states desired benefits, or outcomes, or goals. So for me, I use those terms in a roadmap context interchangeably. And so, I could ask myself, what would be a first good outcome, a first good valid goal for my brand new product, for my MVP, right? That could be maybe to build an initial user community and help people better understand one aspect of their eating behavior. And then I can ask myself, okay, what could be then a subsequent goal? Maybe it could be to increase engagement, or maybe it could be to start growing that community, and maybe help people slowly change some of their eating habits, and so forth. And so you could, the way I look at this in this model is that the product roadmap connects the product backlog to the strategy. It really fills a gap that otherwise exists when you don't work with a roadmap. So you can see I'm very much in favor of using roadmaps if they're used in the right way. And I like to suggest using goal-oriented or outcome-based or benefits-based or themed product roadmaps. Again, to me, these are all largely interchangeable terms. But of course, if that's the model you want to use, you have to make sure that you keep your backlog and your roadmap in sync. So any bigger changes in the product backlog may have to be reflected in the product roadmap, and any bigger roadmap changes may give rise to changes in the product strategy. Now, the question was, how does COVID change our roadmap practices? Well, I generally, and I think because you've mentioned this earlier, I'm a fan, just like yourself, of suggesting a collaborative product road mapping approach. So one way to create an updated product roadmap would be for me to do it as the person in charge of the product. And then I go to the development team and I go to stakeholder 1, stakeholder 2, stakeholder 3, stakeholder 4, stakeholder 5. I take into account their ideas, their concerns, their wishes, and I try and then rework the product roadmap, and then I'll do the same thing all over again. The problem with this approach is that it can be very tedious, it can be very time consuming, and that the different stakeholders and the development team, they never hear the respective concerns and interests and views. And so I personally like to suggest to organize a road mapping workshop, or generally a strategy workshop, where you ideally create the strategy and the roadmap together. And say once a quarter or every 2 months, you have a follow-up workshop and you review the strategy and the roadmap. You look at the KPIs, the product performance, you look at how the market has changed, and maybe a few other factors, any new trends that have emerged, and any new ideas for improvements of your product, for new features, say, and you then consider adjusting, adapting the plans. But do it together, do it collaboratively, in form of, for instance, a Zoom meeting. Now, bringing people together can be challenging when people aren't used to teamwork. And if you have maybe some senior stakeholders who believe that their opinion should win, and in order to avoid that the highest paid person opinions does win, it can be a good idea to have a skilled facilitator, like an experienced Scrum Master, Agile coach, who helps you set up the meeting and again facilitates that session. So to avoid that a person or a few people dominate, and ensure that everybody has her or his say and everybody is heard. Yeah. So that'd be my suggestion. Try, despite being maybe physically remote, still get together online and have an online collaborative workshop.
Yeah, and I suggest to use Miro, Mural. There are a lot of tools. Use both the way how Roman is doing, right, for that road mapping, actually, right? Super. There's another question which came from your roadmap thing, and Sanjeev is also asking that, right? Sanjeev Chaddai's outcomes. My coach, Roman, I work with Luke very closely. You know Luke Hoffman, right? Yeah. So outcome versus output, right? That's another thing, right? And when we are talking about outcome, right? What's the difference between outcome and output as per you, as well as how to really measure right outcome, the business values? What are your take on that?
Yeah, nice. nice question. So outcome is really what are the desired benefits or that I want to achieve, or what is the desired benefit? And that could be, related to helping address or solve a problem. So if a desired outcome is, for instance, to create an initial user community and help people raise the awareness of their eating habits, become more aware of their eating habits. If that's the desired outcome, the desired output would be then the MVP, an initial product version. So the output will be what people can use. It's the actual product. The outcome will be the reason why that product exists, the benefit that that product should offer. Another example would be, when you use an agile framework like Scrum, then Scrum suggests to formulate the sprint goal. Well, the sprint goal, I believe, should describe an outcome, the benefit of the sprint. Why do you bother running a sprint? Why is the sprint being undertaken? The output would be usually a product increment. And that's again the software. And so it's important not only to focus on the output. Of course, the output is crucial. The output is what ultimately people use, right? And ultimately what creates the value. But I think it's equally, at least equally important to have a shared understanding of why a product increment or an MVP or an updated product version is being developed. What do we want to achieve with it? Who is it for? And what do we want to achieve with it? And that helps us make the right decisions, helps us make the right product decisions. It also helps make development teams choose the right user experience design, the right technical design, and therefore make the right solution-specific decisions.
Super. Roman, all of you, I am getting a lot of questions. I know that. I had a previous questions also. So please do not feel bad if your question is not there. We are trying to utilize best, right? As a facilitator, I'm saying. So forgive me if your question is not there. One more question, right? Which is very important for all of us, all of these people. A lot of product managers wanted to move to consulting, right? And again, I will just pick my old cue. It's not easy to get into a new product domain. There are 2 or 3 questions I'm tying now, right? And being a consultant, what is your advice? How you would like to suggest, basically, right? A product manager becoming a consultant. Actually, I've seen people failed miserably, right? In this, it's a Scrum Agile coach versus a product coach are 2 different things, actually, as per me. What's your take, my friend? Yes.
Yeah. Another nice question. So I'd like to quickly go back to this diagram here. Now, what I didn't talk about earlier is a model that is connected to those 3 skills areas or sets. And that is really the idea that it is useful for us product people to be T-shaped. And that's something that I think my colleague Ellen Gottsteiner first suggested. She, I believe, first applied the T model to product management. Mm-hmm. And the way I interpret it is that I say, well, the vertical line here stands for domain-specific knowledge, understanding a specific domain, a specific market, say banking or finance or insurance or online retail, or maybe media or publishing. Understanding a certain product category, understanding how that market works, understanding who the main players are, the main competitors. And then the horizontal elements, well, that would essentially then correspond to the transferable product management skills. So that's the ability to solve recurring product management problems in a systematic, methodical way. Yeah. And for that, you need the tactical skills, the strategic skills, and the leadership skills. Now, why am I saying this? Because I think when you want to foster your career as a product person, be it becoming a consultant or just becoming, trying to go for a more senior position, often it's easier when you stay within your industry or vertical within the domain, because when you move into a new company, you need to obviously understand how the company works. You need to understand what the business models are that are being used. You have to build a network and connections and build trust in order to be able to align and guide people. That's hard enough. If it's also a brand new vertical, if it's a new industry, if it's a new domain, I think it can become very, very challenging. So, it's not a must, but maybe just something to consider. And then the second thing is to make sure that, particularly if you want to consult and if you want to coach others, that you are solid in those three areas, that you have appropriate knowledge and the ability to apply the knowledge in those three areas. And so a certain level, that your skills have a certain level of depth, so you don't have any major gaps, and your knowledge and your skills are deep enough. And just reflecting on my own career, my own development, for me, it was very beneficial to work with and in different organizations before starting to become a coach and a consultant. And the reason for that is that it kind of helped me to put my experience and my views into perspective, and understand that different organizations work in different ways, and what works for one organization doesn't necessarily have to be the right solution for another organization. So maybe try and do that as well if you can.
I know that's great, and I fully agree what you said. I think you need to work. You should have as much experience, cross-functional, different, orgs, right? That helps. I'll ask one more question, and then I'll ask this, community whether we can ask more question. That's very important. Roman, we all saw, innovation happens, and we see is during this period of time, COVID, something which is where we are going as a product management. Do we need to have additional skills? Now, why I'm also asking this thing, because pretty much there is a lot of data-centric apps, data-centric products are getting more closer, right? Do we need to have a data science? Do we need to have something different, additional skills with us? I don't know. I've written something. I'm just basically checking what you want to say about that.
Yeah, nice question. I think for some of those products, the answer probably is yes. I think generally it's helpful to consider what type of product you look after in order to get your skills right, particularly to get those tactical skills here right. So if you look after a technical product like a platform, for instance, that other products, other digital products, other applications use and are built upon, so a platform in the sense of a collection of shared assets, shared microservices or shared components, for instance, then often you do need in-depth technical knowledge. You have to be able to talk to the users, the development team members, or the members of the development teams of the apps that sit on top of the platform. You have to be able to talk to them about APIs and interfaces and interface changes. The same is true when you look after a product that is very data heavy and that helps people do some maybe complex data analysis. Again, then it is probably helpful to know about harvesting data and analyzing data in different ways. So I wouldn't be the right person to look after such a product, for instance.
No, I think you said it right. So with this, probably right, I would like to stop questions, but Roman, what you really wanted to say to this community, right? There are 80 plus people who are listening to you. What you really wanted to say to them? Yes, as a community, right? You had written a lot of books. What you really wanted to say to them? Yes.
What do I really want to say?
It's a pitch. It's a pitch to the product community, right, Roman? Which everyone is looking from you, right? You had really answered all questions. All were very custom-made questions. You could feel it, right? Very much actually. It's not very generic questions, right? What you really wanted to say to them, actually, right? They are all product enthusiasts. Yes.
Yeah, which is great. I think so. The first thing I'd like to say is, again, I think we are in a way in a privileged position being in product. I really think so. I think it's a great opportunity to play a product role. At the same time, I also think becoming a competent product person takes time. And so particularly if you maybe just started out or you haven't played a product role for a long time, then be patient and don't put yourself under pressure. Don't expect too much. It takes, in my experience, months and years to become a well-rounded, competent product professional rather than just days or weeks. So, give yourself some time, and then regularly reflect on your experiences and regularly reflect on your practice, and try and improve it. One of the techniques that can be very useful, which I discuss in my new book, is to consider creating a journal and to having personal retrospectives. Say every Friday, set half an hour aside to see how the week went for you. What are the main challenges that you've encountered? Is there anything that you've learned? Is there anything where you feel, wow, I've maybe progressed or improved something? Are there any pain points? Are there any frustrations? And it can be helpful to write it down and create such a diary, because that allows you to go back over the weeks and over the months, and maybe then every 3 months or so you have a bigger reflection. If you bump into similar challenges repeatedly, or if there's similar frustrations that you experience and you can't find ways to resolve them, then that's interesting to notice, and it can allow you then to do a little bit more inquiry and ask, why is that and what can you do about it? And as product people, our job is to create value, and the way we create value is by innovating. And innovation means that we create something new. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a brand new product for a brand new market, a disruptive product. Not many of us are fortunate enough to do that and pull it off successfully. It can also just be a feature enhancement. But because of the nature of how we create value and the fact that we have to deal with newness, it means that we're likely to make mistakes and we're likely to fail. And that's particularly true when you look after a young product, a product that's still changing significantly. So you don't shy away from failure, and don't expect that you always kind of nail it and that you kind of achieve perfect results. I know that sometimes that's what's expected of us, but I think that's an unrealistic expectation. So again, I think what I'd like to suggest is bringing a certain awareness to how we work, and occasionally taking time to reflect and pausing, and then to allowing yourself to make mistakes and grow and learn, and to be kind to yourself and be compassionate to yourself.
Roman, amazingly right you said. I'll just say a small, simple thing, right, to all product guys. Remain in the problem domain as much as possible. Stay there. Do not worry about remaining in a problem domain. As much you stay in the problem domain, there is a possibility of a better solutions, more options coming to you, actually, right? This is sometimes we avoid to remain in the problem domain because it is messy, right? So this is just one thing I would say from my side. Roman, absolutely great. With that, I will, move it to Satya or Naveen for closing. Actually, Roman, it was absolutely great, chatting with you. It was nice things. Super. Yes, Naveen or Satya.
Thank you for your questions.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Roman, for an enlightening session on product management. We wish we had more time to listen to many more things. We really enjoyed. Nevertheless, this was a terrific learning experience. Thank you so much for doing this. I, on behalf of the Product Tank Pune, would like to thank Vikas also for moderating this session so seamlessly and beautifully. You covered almost all the questions. Thank you so much for doing that.
Full training of Roman you got in 1 hour, right? Think about that. Guys,
Yeah.
one thing. Hey, all, I know there are a lot of other questions. The time was there. You know what you do, Product Tank? Send these questions to me. I'll make sure I will at least answer some of those, actually, right? I'm sorry for that. It's difficult.
Hi, Roman. It was a pleasure talking to you. And we had a lot of good learnings today. On behalf of Product Tank Pune, I would like to thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you, Vikas, for arranging.
I'll add something. Amit is someone who has, at night 11:30 p.m. he has picked me from hotel from Pune 2 or 3 times and drove me to airport, actually, right? With no, any other, he had no requirement for that, actually, right? So Amit, Thank
So
you very
for
much.
the
Thank
community
you.
members, that's the effort which goes into getting Roman Pichler.
Great. You did twice, I know that, at least during my some visits to Pune.
So just to let everyone know, we had 100 plus attendees for this session. So kudos to everyone who joined. Thank you so much for making this event such a grand success. We're thankful to each one of you. I also want to thank our Product Tank Pune community members, starting with Satya, Amit, Abhijit, Bansi, Pratik, Rishi, Harneet, Girish. Everyone really helped in making the event or the session how or what it is right now. Thank you so much. Our next meetup is in the early week of October, and it's focused on the user experience workshop, and it will be facilitated by another expert, which is Follow Me. So we look forward to having many more meetups
Naveen,
and
whether
many
it will
more.
be on video, whether you are going to share this video recording?
Yes, yes. So the video, the session is getting recorded, and it will be circulated to all the attendees and also those who have registered and couldn't really make up. Yeah, great. We are so Product Tank.
One thing. So I have a habit of it. See, I have grown by reading books of Roman. He has written great books. I'm not a marketing guy, but I really wanted to say those are very thin books, not very big books. But if you really go through deeper insights of that, you will get to know the real product management actually, right? That's what I can say. There are a lot of frameworks which has copied that. I wanted to say that. So please, do read the right things actually, right? That will be great for you. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we look forward for everyone's feedback, inputs. We are there on LinkedIn, Twitter. Follow us. We are by the name Product Tank Pune. And Roman, this is great, amazing. So you just added 100 more fans to your club. And we look forward to having many more collaborations like this in the future as well.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Thanks, Raman. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Bye. Take care.
All right, cheers.